Hello friends. So today we are here to, in continuation of GST web series, we'll see there is a concern about unregistered dealer and if what compliance do I have to do if I'm buying something from an unregistered dealer. Actually, if I look at the scenario frankly, then it's a very cumbersome and very you can say increased compliant and hectic job for a company to keep a track of unregistered dealer. And because as you must be aware that under GST rule, if you buy anything from an unregistered dealer, then the liability to pay the tax on that becomes the liability of the registered person. So let's say if Mr. X is a registered person, he is a registered person, and if he buys anything from an X, Y, or Z, any other person, let's say he is Mr. P, Mr. Q, Mr. R, he is buying anything from them, and all the supplies they all are unregistered, then in such case the liability to pay tax on such supply that Mr. X has taken from this PQR becomes the liability of Mr. X to pay, and later on it's creditable and he can take the ITC of the same. But it becomes an increased compliance on the part of a registered dealer to keep a track of all unregistered purchases, because in many of the cases in remote locations it's not possible, and for some small services it's not easy to get those vendors easily available who are having the turnover criteria or who are required to get the registration. So we have to deal with them and we have to take their liability. So for this unregistered dealer are basically of two types. One which are not required to take registration and because of their turnover criteria, and second who falls under reverse charge mechanism. So both are type of an unregistered dealer. Under reverse charge mechanism, like services of if you have some services from manpower supply or something like that, then or any import of service where taxable person is situated in India, then in such cases, all such cases you have to pay the liability under reverse charge. So they both are fall under the reverse charge mechanism, and in all these cases today we'll see what the compliance requirement is there of Mr. X, who is a registered person who is availing service from the person who is not required to get registration, and also from the service who is which is covered under reverse charge mechanism, like in service of an advocate. So first let's look at the basic criteria. What does it says? What the law says? The law says if you buy anything or if you procure anything from unregistered person, then the first condition is that you have to do self invoicing to book your liability. So what does it mean? It means that, let's say if I am buying a product of 100 rupees and from an let's say it's of 1,000 rupees from an advocate, and he is charging me 18%. Let's say this services is just an example, and we are just saying that let's say he is taking an reverse charge mechanism and charging 18%. This transaction he is not charging anything to me, he is just giving me 1,000 rupees invoice, but I understand that this service falls under 18% GST, so I have to book the liability. So first, what are my liability becomes? First, my liability is to determine under what HSN should I determine this product. Determine the HSN. HSN refers to the harmonized system of nomenclature under which all existing products of GST are taxed based on HSN. So once I decide the HSN, then I can decide the rate. So first I have to determine at what HSN, under what category, or HSN is basically refers to the category, means what is the type of transaction. So this is the liability of an Mr. X, that he has to do the self invoicing, he has to book the liability, he has to determine under what HSN this product will fall. Then accordingly he has to determine what rate of GST will apply in this case. Let's say in this case its rate comes to 18%. So what he will do, he will book this entire 1000 rupees. This you cannot take as an inclusive value, you cannot do reverse calculation that this entire 1000 rupees is inclusive of taxes and I will do reverse calculation and then pay the taxes thereof. It's reverse charge mechanism. Then the 1000 rupees will be the base value for calculation of GST, and from this you will charge 18% on 1000 rupees, and accordingly you will book the liability for 180 rupees in your book. So what will happen in this case, you will raise a self invoice. Let's say my registration is in Maharashtra, and let's say this is my GSTN number. So I am having Mr. X is having registration in Maharashtra. So it will be Mr. X buyer and seller for this both the product will be same Mr. X. So what will happen, Mr. X will raise a self invoice which will look like I will just show you the how the self invoicing pattern will look like. So what happens actually when there is any purchase from unregistered dealer, then in that case we have the liability to book the GST liability of that purchases under in our books, and accordingly it need to be paid off. But at the same time it is also important that the liability which we pay, it is paid on supply, means it is paid on purchases which we made from an unregistered person. And since we have paid the liability, if we don't raise the invoice, then we will not be having any document to take the credit. So if I look at this, just a sample pattern of self invoicing, this is not it will be just a self invoice. So it will be, the service will be from Mr. X and it will be to Mr. X, and the GST liability, the base value of this 1000 rupees, you can also give description that the purchase was made from XYZ and company, advocate company, and then you will accordingly determine under what HSN, under what rate it will be charged. Let's say X is 1, 2, 3, 4 anything, the rate becomes 18%, just as example, and there will be a unique number to this self invoice which you will upload, and based on which you will take the credit in your book. And first you will pay it off, and it will not be reflected in your sales, it will be reflected in your purchases. In your purchases you will reflect this invoice, and your automatically the liability also of your reverse charge will be reflected in your book. So how to get out of this, how can I make my compliance easy? So this is my compliance, that I have to raise the self invoice. Once the self invoice is raised, I have to record the liability. Once the liability is recorded, then I have to pay it off accordingly to government, and after the liability is being paid, I can, yes, it's a credit is available and I can take the credit. So what are the options available to me to get out of this? Because if I don't want to get into this, then the basic first benefit that government has given, that if your total purchases from unregistered buyer seller is less than 5,000 or equal to 5,000, then you don't have to raise no self invoicing, or you can say no liability under reverse charge to be booked by an Mr. X. What if Mr. X, let's say Mr. X has several buyings, let's say he has paid some local travel expenses, he has paid some food expenses, let's say this is for 100 rupees, this is for 200 rupees, there is some other services, or we can say something like stationery from unregistered seller, let's say he has paid 300 rupees. So his total buying, let's say for this is my expense for 1 month. And so how do I need to raise the self invoice? The government says you don't need to raise each and every line item, you don't need to raise a single invoice, but you can raise a consolidated invoice at the end of the month, and accordingly you can book the liability in your book. So at the end of the month I will find out how many purchases I have made from the unregistered dealer. Let's say in this case my total liability will become 100, 200, 300, total comes to my 600. So I have a 600 rupees purchases from unregistered dealer. I will determine how what the HSN of this category and this category. But still, if I even if this so I have an option to book a consolidated invoice in place of a single invoice for all the purchases, but still it becomes the liability of the registered person who is availing the any purchase or getting any supply from unregistered person, that he pays off the liability of the goods which he has purchased from unregistered dealer, and at the same time what classification he takes, it means what HSN he select for payment of tax will be the solely the responsibility and the liability of Mr. X in this case. So though government has given the exemption of that up to rupees 5,000, but in some cases this amount is very less, but and it's more important, this rupees 5,000 exemption that government has given, that 5,000 exemption that government has given, it is per GSTN number. So if I have a registration in 10 states, then my total in each state I will get a exemption of up to 5,000 rupees. If like you are a retail chain or something, if you have a store in several states, so it's preferable to avoid the unregistered purchase. And if you have made the unregistered purchases, then I will prefer I will advise to you people that if you don't have the mechanism to record the liability separately, to have the prepare the sheet of unregistered purchase and get the data. So what details I will advise to you people to get prepared for raising of the self invoice is like first you can say the date, at what date I have procured this service, what was the nature of service, is there any reference number available, then what was the purpose. Then you can select if you have a several state and under different state you want to put up, then for which state this service was incurred. Basically you have to determine the liability state wise. Let's say you have the business in Maharashtra, you have the business in Gujarat, you have the business in Karnataka. So accordingly you can just list down your all the state wise, because for every state you have to pass a separate entry, because every state is a separate territory under GST. then you will identify under what HSN this product will fall, and before HSN there will be the value of the service, and apart from that, then you will record what is the GST percentage that will be charged, and also you can have the is there any reference number or something like that. So these are the basic details which I think you have to get yourself documented. Let's say this is on 2nd of August. I can say this is nature of travel, local travel, or reference number. If he has given me some invoices, then I can just mention that invoice number. Let's say for the purpose that I'm visiting the store, for visiting the store, if anything like that, then the state, let's say this Gujarat state, that this category falls under let's say anything like 96xx anything something like that, then the value of the this expense is 200 rupees. So what I will do, I will at the end of the month I will do the pivot of this sheet, and I will find out based on this what data I will be having available. I will just summarize that data, uh, that Mr. X will be having these details available with him. So what data he will be having is like this is my first state, Maharashtra, this is my Gujarat, this is my Karnataka. So what are the under which HSN, let's say 9603, 9604, how much expenses do I have, let's say for the month 300. How much liability, let's say I have a 20 rupees GST liability, here I have a 30 rupees GST liability. Accordingly here also I have, let's say 8405, 84, anything like that. Then I will do pivot like this, and I will identify that what are the values that I have to determine under which I pay accordingly. Then accordingly I will pass a separate entry. So this is my first entry, this is my second entry, this is my third entry. So this consolidated entry I will pass in my book to record a separate liability for separate GSTN. So this is the reporting, and also you have to keep the copy of supporting on based on which you have claimed this unregistered supply. And for this also you will first have to raise the self invoice. So in all these cases you will be having 3 self invoices at the end of the month. You can have it multiple invoices, but it is advisable to have it once in a month to avoid your compliance work, and since that will help you. I hope this video is useful to you people, and this information, I think unregistered dealer, there are some cases where there are some lack of clarity. Let's say because unregistered buying is not limited to the unregistered buying made by the company, but also most of the time when your employees are traveling to any outstation, and they incurred some expenses, and in that state, let's say my employee who is my employee of Mr. X. Mr. X, if let's say it's some Mr. X is a company, and Mr. Y is his employee. He is traveling to some other state. Let's say he is traveling to Assam, and in that state he don't have any registration. He is having registration only in state of Karnataka. So how Mr. Y will book his liability for in his book for Assam, because the service has been received in Assam, and in this case the liability must be paid in Assam. But since he don't have, so he can't take, even it is not practical to take a any registration as a casual taxable person, or it may be very small to have a, but I think there is a clarity awaited from the government that how such transaction is if my employee is traveling some other state and if he is having some unregistered purchases and I don't have the registration there, how I will book the liability for Assam and how will I will pay off such liability? Ideally, if opinion is to be taken in such case, there should not be any liability because the person is traveling in his own capacity and he's not having a place of business in that state, and it is straightforward a consumption made by the person and by an unregistered person to unregistered person. So it is both the, since I don't have the place of business and I'm not making any supply, I'm just taking the supply from someone. So in such case, ideally there should not be any liability, but still we hope that government will give some more clarity on this picture. So I hope you like this video, and I hope your queries on unregistered dealer will be resolved on this. If you have any other query, just put it in your comment, or you can send us through feedback, and certainly I hope this will be helpful to you. If you like our video, kindly subscribe and do like us for future video. Thank you.